Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked,
and sometimes what didn't,
you will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts
And inspire you to do even greater things.
My guest today is Vinaya Mallya, an IT professional who now serves in the social sector. In this conversation, she talks about how her father, as well as her college principal, encouraged her to get into computer science. And later, at her first job, how she found her passion for software and problem solving, particularly collective problem solving in a team setting. The work-life balance challenges that she had to face after marrying young and having a demanding job and also having a child. Later on, inspired by her father's entrepreneurial spirit, Vinaya dreamt of creating jobs for others someday, and how she started an animation company. Subsequently, how she got into the social sector. She also talks about some of the positives and some challenges of working with an all-women team. And finally, she shares her career tips for both early career professionals as well as mid-career. Listen on. Hi, Vinaya. Welcome to the Software People Stories.
Thank you, Shiguru.
And happy Women's Day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So thanks for agreeing to share your story, and that too in this series of specials that we are running this month. That is, every March we normally feature only women. Or
Okay.
sometimes, one year we also had women with their spouses.
Oh, okay.
But
With a
because
twist.
it is not only, when you say women and focusing on women, I think it is also equally important that others also appreciate and understand and have that empathy. So, like we normally do, we can start with a self-introduction and what got you into IT and what all you have been doing. And then we will take it from there.
Okay, so just a little bit about myself. So I am Vinaya Mallya. The surname is a little popular in Bangalore for wrong reasons. Yeah, so that's my married surname. So I have a family of husband and two girls. Elder one is 21, younger one is 19, and live in Bangalore in Malaysia. Spent most of my life in Bangalore right from childhood. So I've done my schooling in Rajajinagar, did my engineering in Ramaya, joined Infosys, spent a lot of time there, and dabbled in my own startup for a few years. And now I'm spending some time with an organization called One Foundation, which is building social sector technology solutions and things like that, right? So uh, in a nutshell, I think I've experienced different uh, my career has spanned over different things. Like I've had a corporate experience, I've done something on myself, and now I'm in the social sector. So I think it's given me a varied platforms I've been working in.
Yeah, that immediately throws up a lot of questions. I mean, my curiosity probably started there. So what made you choose IT first?
Okay, so let me just roll back to 30 years back. Nothing really. When I was in college, I just knew I needed to be an engineer because my father was my role model. He was a mechanical engineer, right? And he was running a factory, but I always looked up to him as a very powerful person. Interestingly, he was in the brewery. He was running a brewery, so he had a lot of political connect and police connect and things like that. I only saw it as a very powerful role that he was in, right? And I thought, you need to be an engineer to be somebody like this, right? And that's all. And I think I didn't know nothing about software or anything at that point. So this must be in like 1980, 89 or 87 maybe. So I mean, at that point, so I just did the 12th standard, then wrote CET and got some seat in engineering. And I remember getting civil engineering, right? So that was the seat I got. And I just went ahead, and then, the principal happened to tell my father, I mean, she's a girl, what you'll do with the civil engineering. And my father said, it's okay, Shani wants to do engineering. And he suggested, why don't you do computer science? So then, and he of course said it'll cost some money and all that. Then my father said, no, let's see first year how she performs. And based on performance, you decide if she wants to get into computer science. So that's how I moved from civil to computer science in the second year. But I was still lost because those days, computer science engineering was just bookish. We hardly did anything on the systems. And I think I learned something like Fortran and some COBOL or something, which was more theoretical. But when I did my final year, we had to do this project, and luckily I got an opportunity to do it in BEL.
Okay.
Right, and I think that was kind of an opening because I spent about 2 months maybe there, and one small program we wrote for a controller. And of course, it was hardly few lines, I would think. Now I'm maybe 100 or 120 lines of code or whatever. But when he actually put that instrument inside and the machine ran, it was really, I think that's when I really understood the power of software. But till then, it was really nothing. I was just doing a course and just going on with it types, right? That kind of gave me some very different feel. And I thought, okay, this is it kind of got me a kick, I mean, not really. So, like, you could write some lines of code, or you just wrote something and you could make some machine run, things like that, right? Of course, I'm sure whatever I wrote was one small part of a huge stuff, but it made a lot of difference. And so then I said, okay, looks like we should do something in this space, right? And that's how, and frankly, right after college, I got married. I got married to an IT engineer. So, I mean, my father is a little ancient. He said education and all is required just for, in worst case. It's not for you all to go get a job, right? He was very clear. He said, you girls don't need to go work in case when a situation comes in life, you need to be equipped with education. So that was his thing. So we were not really looking forward to a job kind of a thing, right? So my college was over. He got me married within a month of me out of college. But my husband was all about, people have to be independent, they have to work and things like that. So he was looking for an IT engineer because he was already 8 years into the IT industry. So he was clear he wanted an IT engineer for a wife. And so he actually, when he interviewed me, it was like he was doing an interview for a job, And then he kind of said, yes, she's the girl. But I had very clearly told him, I'm probably not a very long-term working girl, I prefer to be, I like what my mother does at home and things like that. So maybe I would just work if I want to work kind of thing. And he said, no, I'm sure this girl is not going to sit at home. He had that feeling. So but I think he was a big influence for me to actually start looking for work. So, I think 3 months into marriage, and then I was already applying. I was, so I applied at Bosch and I applied at Infosys. Bosch, I had some 3 or 4 rounds of interview, and then I think I had to drop out. At Infosys, I got selected, and that's where the journey began. But even in Infosys, first 3 months, I found it very difficult because we had the training period. And I kept telling my husband, no, 1 year. We had to sign a 1 year bond or something. So 1 year and that's it. I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. This is very technical. It's too difficult and things like that. And he said, okay, let's see for 1 year. And I think after 3 months of training, it was just a very different flow. Right? It was so amazing. We used to join in batches of like 200, 300, and you had people from different areas coming, marine engineers, gemology, something. But they were all from different IITs and different places. And suddenly I felt, okay, I'm also here with all these brilliant people. So maybe that there's something. And I think that made a difference. I think after the 3 months, there was no turning back. It was just one after another kick. I felt, I mean, just solving problems. Ultimately, that was all it is, right? It's a puzzle, solve it. And I think that kind of just became part of life. So I would say I didn't plan for it. I've somehow been pushed into it, and I'm glad because I really enjoy it.
That's really nice. So what was the turning point? We talked about problem solving, but it's also about understanding the problem as well as coming from, let's say, a college or even the project kind of scenario. Here, it is about working in teams. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, see, I think I figured myself out more in my work life, right? I realized how much of a people person I am. I always felt I was an introvert. I was more about myself. I lived in a cocoon. But when in Infosys, it's when I realized how much people person. I'm so much about people, actually. I like being with people,
Mm.
and I I'm able to work with any kind of person. Somebody who's extremely brilliant also is fine. Somebody who's, because I consider myself an average person. I feel I can absorb from brilliant people, learn a lot from others, but I'm also I can help others to move up
Mm.
also. So,
Mhm.
so in Infosys, I think that opportunity was there, right? So we worked
Mhm.
with very, very different kind of people, and we had projects, 3-month projects, 6-month projects. So you'll end up working with so many of them.
Mhm.
Of course, we also had a lot of these interactions with other country people, right? Because our
Mm.
software was all in the global development models or whatever. So we had to interact with people abroad. So I think that thing grew more and more on me, I would think, right?
Mm.
Just the whole thing of working with groups of people and
Mhm.
then getting exposure to other communities, other countries. I think that kind of grew on me, and
Mm.
that's why I continue to probably enjoy the work I was doing. Yeah. So while it was problem solving, I think it was collective problem solving, right? There was a business problem given, and at like 30,000 feet high, and you just listen and you say, what do we do now?
Mhm.
And then you just break it down and break it down, and you brainstorm and brainstorm, and you just keep throwing ideas and how things come together finally.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. So it's not one person's solution, right? I mean, a lot of
Mm.
people work together and come up with a solution. So yeah, it's a good experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also very heartening to hear that you had so much of support from your husband, pretty much, pushing you into this to discover
Yeah.
your passion. Uh, but as part of that transition, looks like there were a lot of changes that happened when you said, from being a student, you completed, you got married, now you have this job, you're trying to figure out whether you
Yeah.
liked or not, and all that. So this whole thing about this work-life balance, we always
Hmm.
hear that it is harder on women
Yeah.
with responsibility. So how was that for you at that early stage?
Yeah, so I got married really young, I was just 20 and a half. And I've lived a very cocooned life all through because I never went to hostels. So I was always looked, at home, taken care of by parents. So when I got married, I was just like thrown out. My husband is completely different. He expects you to drive on the road at 12 o'clock on your own. And I've never done it before in life, right? So he was completely different. He needed me to be very independent. And I think that sudden change, uh, I just think it was the right time. I was 21. I think I was ready to take all those challenges. I just absorbed it, right? And maybe these were things that I wanted to do, but since my father was a very dominating person, I was not allowed to do. I didn't realize that maybe I wanted to do all these things. I just
Mm.
went with the flow in my parents' house, right?
Mhm.
But the moment I came here, the entire opportunity was given to me more because he didn't want to be responsible. My husband was very clear. I don't want to take your responsibility. You have to be independent on your own. So it was kind of thrown on me, but maybe I could take it quickly
Mm.
from him.
Mm.
And yeah, so the transition, and of course we moved into his family home, so my in-laws were with me.
Mm.
So it was a lot of support. I didn't really have a lot of challenge initially,
Mm.
but over time, of course, there was a lot of pressure that Infosys, how the working life is. You leave at
Mm.
6 in the morning. Slowly, you start coming home only at 10 in the night, and then
Mhm.
that's when the issues start cropping, right? Because it's difficult for them to understand. My
Mm.
husband was in an MNC by then, so they didn't really have that difficult working hours.
Mm.
But he always understood what I was going through. He never
Mhm.
complained. He
Mm.
knew what. So he had told me, "I'm going to give you 5 years. The first
Mhm.
5 years, just focus on your career. It is not very demanding, right?" And but I think there were little challenges because of course, joint family issues will be there, but
Mm.
it was not so bad that couldn't be handled. There had to
Mhm.
be some amount of patience at our end. So the weekends were dedicated for my in-laws, whatever they wanted, wherever they
Mhm.
want to go. So that's how we managed. It was okay. I mean, of course, when I used to go abroad for these all on-site trips, that was again tough part. So I would come back every 3 months, even if I had a 12-month
Mhm.
uh, uh, assignment. I would come back every 3 months, spend
Mm.
10 days here, and go back. that just to keep people happy, just to keep that. So we had to do some of these compromises, which was okay. We just had to do these things. Yeah. But I think my in-laws were always very happy that they had a daughter-in-law at Infosys that day. Those days, Infosys was big. So, my daughter-in-law works at Infosys. So, so those things were there. So I guess it was a balance we had to do it. Yeah. Yeah. But it was extremely long hours. But I don't think I don't remember ever feeling brained out or tired for some reason. I always enjoyed being there for all those hours and go back the next day morning. So I never really had any challenges. Maybe because I started my family much later on. So, like my husband said, 5 years, don't bother, just focus on your career. And I did exactly that. The first 5 years, while I had to only worry about maybe my family, not really children and that aspect. So, we didn't really focus on all that. So, once the children came, and that's when the compromises started. Yeah. So, that's life, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. So with all this, what was it that made you leave Infosys and do a startup? Although the
Oh,
term was probably not so popular those days.
Yes. Okay, so I think I'd spent 11 years at Infosys, and by then we were just workaholics. And my father himself was a workaholic, so we were. It was kind of ingrained. I mean, we were workaholics in a sense. We just liked working. I'm not saying we built big corporates or anything, but we just like to work, right? And Infosys also kind of ingrained that in us. And there was one other thing that I've seen in my father. He always said, "Don't look for jobs, create jobs." I mean, that was something he always told us. My elder sister is a dentist. So the first 2 years, she went as a professor to some college. And he told her, enough, put up a clinic, and maybe in 5 years, you will hire an assistant, but that's it. So I've seen these things. And I also, it's somewhere there in my mind that at some point, I want to be able to create some jobs. So that was the tagline in my head. Right? So, but I didn't know when. But my husband doesn't come from that background. He's all about work, make money, enjoy life. That's it. He's not from an entrepreneurial thought process. But once I left, I think at the end of 11 years, when I had to leave Infosys. Not that I left. I didn't leave by choice. My first daughter came when I was probably 8 years in Infosys. So my parents helped me take care of her. My husband had moved on assignment to Malaysia. So I moved in with my parents. So they helped me take care of my first daughter. And when my second daughter was due, my mom only told me one question. She said, "I don't understand what kind of family you are trying to build here. You are sitting here. Your husband is sitting in Malaysia. He comes once a month to see your children. You see your children at 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. So I'm here to take care of them. But what kind of family is this?" And that kind of struck a very strong chord to me. And I just picked up the phone and told my husband, "I'm quitting." And he said, "What?" I said, "No, my mom said this, and I think it's right. We are not being responsible with our children, right?" So, and he said, "That's strong statement." I said, "Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to bring children into the world, then we better be there for them." And then he says, "Okay, it's your choice." And that same day, I went and put in my paper at Infosys because I knew if I think on it for 3 days, I will probably stay back. I will figure out a way to stay back. I wanted to resign the moment when I was hurt. And that's when I went and put in my papers. And yeah, of course, they said, of course, we didn't have sabbatical, we didn't have work from home, we didn't have any of these options. So there were no options, right? Either you be there or you're not there. So there was no question of a long vacation holiday or whatever, right? So, well, I just put in my papers, and I think shortest relieving, I think within 3 weeks or something, I was let go. I was allowed to go. Yeah, so it was. In fact, I had just conceived, so I could have stayed for till 9 months or so. But I just decided to leave because it had already brought in some kind of an uncomfortable feeling. So I thought best to leave now. And yeah, so if not for my mother who put that thought in my head, maybe I would have just been there till today. Because I was very comfortable. I had enjoyed my career job there, so I don't see any reason why I would have left otherwise. But I'm glad she made that statement because what I did afterwards was much more fruitful, I think. Oh, okay, so I took about a two-year break, and and then itching to do something again. By then I said, okay, why go back to corporate life? Let's try something. Because as I said, somewhere at the back of my mind, there was something to do something on my own. So that's when I said, okay, let me start something. And I was pondering over a few things. A lot of things we see in the US and we say it's not here in India. Still, like, let's say automated washing of cars. You just drive the car inside and the whole thing cleans up. It was not there in India. So here the Pizza Huts and the McDonald probably had not in, or had just come in. So there was so many brands. So I was looking at all these franchisees and say, bring them to India, maybe try something. And then finally I said, okay, the animation was one space which kept again. And there was another thing I explored, this mini golf. I really took to it in the US when I was there, and it hadn't come up here at India. I don't know if it is still there now, but this was another thing I was exploring. But finally, we settled down to animation was something that was coming up again and again. So because a lot of product design, animated videos, movies were coming up, so we thought animation may be the next big thing. So that's how I took up a franchisee of an animation institute. I started with training. And then I said, training is not my cup of tea. So we moved on to design. So we actually started developing, of course, it was projects, it was services. So that's how, I'm very happy. I think at peak, I had about 19 employees. But yeah, that was a ramp up and a ramp down and all that. Yeah, but we did good. So did a lot of projects, a lot of different kind of work. I'm very happy to say all those people whom I had hired were people who people had just out of colleges, because I couldn't afford more experienced people, and they're all doing very well. They've all joined bigger companies, and they're all doing well for themselves. So yeah, so that's the best side. I've not made profits on my company or anything, but I think that's the bigger chunk where. Because most of them came from Hubli, Dharwad, not even from Bangalore, right? And I could give them a platform to start their careers, and then of course they're all doing well. So that's good. So that's satisfying stuff. Yeah.
How was that in terms of demands on your time?
Yeah. So that's exactly the point. So that was pretty much a 1% driven. So it was driven by me. I was the only one, and so it all depended on how much I was available. So I chose to set up my office in between my kids' schools, right? So it was like a kilometer away from my daughter's school, a kilometer away from my mother's house, and all that. With all that set up, we try to put up this place. So I took a break during lunchtime. So between, I think, 2 to 4:30 was my break time. So I ensured I would go pick up my children at school, take them to my parents' house, give them the food, go back to work. So it was okay. It was still fine. But I realized that when I went on vacation, because whenever school vacations are there, I'm supposed to take off because there are school vacations and I need to, those 2-3 months, you're not fully involved in the work, and then the business slumps, right? And then you take another 2 to 3 months to ramp it up again, and again the Christmas vacation comes. So I realized that if you're not there, business goes down, and then it's a lot of effort to again find customers, is that. So it was very, very dependent on me, but at the same time, I was not in a position to hire next level kind of people, right? There was no such visibility. At least maybe I didn't find the visibility, or maybe I didn't know how to grow, right? So it is possible that I didn't want to grow beyond also, but that's also a challenge in business. If you don't grow, then you die, right? That these are few things. If you're trying to say, okay, I'm going to be a small person, you just stay that and then you disappear after some time, right? Yeah. So I think one, I didn't have the risk appetite to grow. Two, I really didn't think of succession plan. And three, I was heavily dependent on one or two customers who were funded startups. And the moment the funding plugged there, I went bust, right? So these were 2-3 big mistakes I've done in that startup. But it's okay. We survived. We managed. But yeah, didn't get to grow too big because I think the responsibilities were too much on the other side. I needed to be there for the children. And, once they start growing, there's multiple classes they have to go to, multiple picks and drops and all those things. My husband was working in Marthahalli, so there was no way he could, be at home at 5 o'clock to drop somebody and things like that. So yeah, so we had to, and I think once I had taken a step down from the corporate job, it just became, it was just assumed that I would take up all this, right? It just naturally became my job to do all these things. So then you say, okay, might as well invest in the children and their whatever stuff they would like to do. So yeah, I compromise or whatever you want to call it, but yeah, that's how it is.
I think you can call this as a compromise because ultimately the choices we make, the priorities,
Yes,
they
yes,
change
yes,
based on our needs and aspirations at that time.
yes, yes, yes.
So
I
how
would
did
just,
this? Yeah,
I
yeah,
would just say I'd say actually it was a luxury. I had a luxury to choose not to work. Right? It's not everybody doesn't have that choice,
good.
right? So I had a choice to not work and not impact whatever we want to do in life, right? So that's a luxury some people get. So yeah, I think I'm blessed. Yeah, that way.
So how did this social sector entry happen?
Yeah. Okay. That's again not a plan at all in my life. Never thought social sector was only about making our annual donations and getting the ATG certificate. That's all we knew of the social sector, right? Or maximum you helped your house helps and all that in whatever way, right? So maybe support somebody's education, but that's about it. Uh, so when I was running my startup, I think I met some person. I met one person who happened to somehow know the Dhwani Foundation people in some way, and he was, this person said, would you be interested? They are looking for some person in IT, but it's a social sector. And I was kind of, why does social sector need tech people? And I was just not able to understand what he was saying. Actually, that person develops a school management systems, and he
Okay.
implements it for rural schools. So he had and I was helping him a little in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, no, why don't you explore? I don't know what exactly they're doing. I just heard they're looking for somebody. And I just looked up and I said, oh, this is Rajiv Kuchal. And, I kind of knew Rajiv. Of course, I personally didn't know him because we didn't work together in Infosys, but he was much senior and I'd heard enough about him. So that's all. I just called and I said, I heard you guys are looking for somebody, but I'm running my own thing. But I don't mind spending, maybe 1 or 2 days a week to see what this is. And he said, that's what we also want if somebody can spare some time. And that's how it started. And that one day a week became 2 days, and now it's 5 days, and then it's forever. Yeah, and yeah, it's about 7 years, and it's just going. It's going well for me, and I hope it's going well for Dhwani also. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what were some of your own work style changes as you were moving? So earlier, when you said with Infosys, it is more about long days, all that, working across continents. And then with your startup, it is about having to be there, this on off and stuff like that. Now with this social sector, in terms of both interacting with, say, the customers for whom you're creating solutions, the partners, as well as building a team. With the startup, I assume that you had the vision, you had everything that you wanted the team to do. Whereas here, there are probably inputs coming from different stakeholders. How do you kind of get it all together and then take the team along? Yeah.
Huh.
And particularly since I know this context, since you have an all-woman team,
Okay.
does it make it
Yeah.
more challenging, less challenging, or what are some
Yeah.
of the advantages that you see in there?
Yeah. Yeah. So that way, if you look at the team in terms of hiring and all, I think Infosys was the easiest. I mean, there was because it already had a brand. So as you're saying, the journey is very different in each place, right? So I think in Infosys there was no challenge. People were just coming to join in hordes, right? So there's really no challenge there. Everybody seemed to be similar intellectual levels or whatever. So it really not so difficult in Infosys to build a team and work together, right? But when it came to the startup, yeah. First of all, I had to hire people with skill sets that I was not comfortable with. In a sense, I didn't know. I had no. I had no. This is so animation is all about design, creativity, that kind of thing. So I really didn't have any formal education in that space, nor did I know what it meant to be like that, other than the fact that you use software tools to actually design. But really, the kind of people who came are very different, right? So they're very creative. Their communication skills may not be great, but they're very artistic, and they have a very different skill set. And for me to so when I came from Infosys and to start hiring for this, so I had a very different, I needed people to be very vocal, to be able to share very quickly what we say, give a problem and solve it quickly. Here, it took forever to come up with an idea, right? And you had to give people that space. You couldn't push people. There was no question of saying I want it tomorrow, and that's how the space was all, right? And uh, and and um, and one more thing, in Infosys, we were all about bugs. Now the lesser the bugs, the better kind of thing. So we were so hard pressed. We were always testing and ensuring there's no defect, right? Now again, in the design space, we have to be a little, you know, I think I used to always look for defects, and it hurt people, right? And it didn't go well with the designers or whoever the creative people, And then they just, so these are some aspects, and it would hurt them. And I think I would say no. I'm a stickler for, it has to be perfect, and they would say no. This is not how it works here. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's a reason why this shape is like this, or why it is not symmetric, and all that. And I would say okay. And for me to start appreciating that and accepting that this is how it needs to be was for me, it was a big change. So but yeah, I learned with them that this is how it had to be, right? And so I would say there was a lot of learning for me there, but I had a set of good people, I would say, I'm glad, who didn't take me for a ride. Of course, we had some bad hires also, but that's a part of life, right? But I could depend on a couple of good people whom I could depend on to make some decisions for me. And yeah, so I think having the right people around always helps, especially if you're in a new space completely, right? And that's when I realized finally, doesn't matter who the customer is, there are different ways to solve a solution. So while you could have a very techy, high-end solution in the IT industry, you could also come up with small diagrams kind of thing, solutions for somebody else, or you could come up with a small app for the social sector. So when this person introduced me to the sector, that's when I said, okay, it's tech for social sector, so why not? Let's explore it, right? Because I didn't see myself doing anything else. Of course, let me just say one thing. I don't have big vision. I don't know what I will do 5 years later. I kind of don't think so much, right? And one other thing is I take anything that comes along. I don't mind what it is. If somebody feels that I can contribute, then I'd love to be there and do it, right? So that's my way. So if somebody feels that, if Rajiv felt that I could contribute, I say okay, so let me come and see what works, right? So that's how I am. So when somebody says what took you to the social sector, I don't have an answer. I just know Rajiv was the person. I know there was the thing, and they said they were building tech first. Okay, let's see, maybe I can contribute. So that's the way I looked at it and went. And here, of course, the team is very different. So Manju and me, we worked together for the first 2-3 years closely, and I think both of us went through similar phases in life. She was also from TCS, and she had the similar journey. So we were a little, somewhere deep down our heart, we always felt that maybe the women should be given a little more support. In a sense, if we were in a position to provide that kind of support and bring them, so somewhere consciously we were trying to bring girls or women into the team for some reason. I mean, not that we were discriminating. No, we are not discriminating. But somehow we found that if you're in the tech space, then maybe we would find only women who would come to the social sector. Otherwise, people would probably try to go for development jobs in any other company, right? Because the salaries are lesser, the opportunities are lesser. So somehow, though it was not, I'm saying it was there at the back of my mind that we will give preference to women. But, I think over the period of time, we realized that we are finding only women who will fit into the job. And yes, so we do have a team of 6-7 people, and we are all women. So this time when we wanted to hire, I specifically told the HR that, I think I want to get diversity into the team, but we are not finding luck. Yeah. So the challenges you were saying, yes, the all-woman team has its own challenges, but it's not something we cannot manage. So I'm thinking maybe we are able to manage it because we are able to relate to the issues better. We are able to understand why the challenges are there. But at the same time, I don't like to give a free hand, right? I mean, so you can't always come with challenges. We have to find solutions. So you will have to do it. We will have to figure out how we can do it.
Mm.
So that's the way I look at it. So, um, uh, yeah. So challenges are there. So, yeah. So like something like a travel. Some people are not comfortable traveling alone. So whether two people can travel, then there's a budget constraint. All these things are there. Yeah. So we have to be a little considerate. Yeah. Now, maybe I take a lot of, sometimes I feel I become very protective of the team and take a little on me, which is wrong because the team needs to learn to grow and do things. So I realize it's wrong and then I try to fix it. Yeah, so these are some things we try to do. Yeah,
So one question that I normally ask, I want to ask with a slightly different question,
okay.
which is normally about any career advice that you might have. Let me start asking you by having seen you and your husband in the industry, do your children want to be in IT?
No, no, they hate computers, they hate software. And not now. I think right from sixth grade, when they came into sixth grade, I think the computer subject gets introduced to them, and they start with "I hate," you know, and I say, "How can you say that?" I mean, don't worry, I will teach you. And they say the teacher doesn't teach it well. I said, "Don't worry, I will teach you." And I think by me getting involved in teaching, I made them hate it more, maybe. Yeah. So I don't know what, but both of them hate computers or software or anything. But I don't think it's got anything to do with us being in the industry. I think I don't relate to it that way, but maybe. It was not introduced to them well in school, and then I took over, and then it was even worsened. Maybe I think so. I will. Maybe I'm responsible for it. But however, I think my elder one wanted to try medical. She wanted to try for NEET, and during the COVID time, I think she lost the focus, or she somehow gave up. She said, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore." So finally, she's in computers. So by hook or crook, she's there now. Whether so she's learning it. Whether she is wholeheartedly there, I'm not sure. Let's see what she does in future. We're going to keep it open. But my younger one is very clear. She's into design. She's all about
Okay.
design and things like that. And she tells me, "When you running an animation center?" I said, "That's different." I was running one. I was not doing. And she says, "No, no, just let me do." So I'm like, "Okay, go ahead, do what you want. Figure out what you want." So she's talking of design. So yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Now, going to the larger uh, community,
Hmm.
what would be your tips or advice for, say, women getting into the IT sector? And the second part, that's for a different segment of people, where probably for women it becomes even more critical. That there are certain phases in life when you start questioning, should I with my career, or should I change my line, whether it is from technical to non-technical, engineering, or anything related, allied. So, what would be your tips for that? So, the first one is the entry level. The second, you can possibly call them as mid-career crisis.
Okay. Um, from my personal experience, I would say at entry level, give 5 years to your career. Right. I think uh, I hope they have that time to invest. And people who have got the choice to invest, if you're a fresher, you're out of college, you're 21, 22, just give 5 full years to career. I think it's important to invest. And when you do that, invest wholeheartedly. Not about 8 hours, I will work 8 hours. See, that kind of baggage we should not carry. I will work only so many hours. I need to spend time. I have a party to attend. I'm sure we have enough time to spend for parties. It's not like if we overwork, we don't have time. I think there's enough time for everything. So I'm not saying only by stretching yourself beyond working hours you're going to make it. But all I'm saying is be open to it. That these should not be constraints that we will work only so many hours, we will work only on working days, or I will work only in a particular scope of work. I want to do only Java, I want to do only Angular. I don't think we should be restricted, because these skills, the so-called the coding skills, whether it's a Java or Angular or SQL, doesn't matter. It gives a whole lot of other perspectives in terms of problem solving, analytical. So whichever language it is you're using, doesn't matter, right? These are the other skills that sharpen up. So if you have an opportunity, like if I got an opportunity to do in mainframe at that point in time, I would just take it. While Java was the biggest thing that time, right? I would take it because I knew there was something else I would learn out of it. So the whole thing is be open to learning, be very, very flexible in what all you can do, and invest 5 full years in your career. And at some point, those phases in life will come when you have to step down. You will have to, for various reasons, right? I don't say step down. I will say decelerate. You will not keep accelerating always. So go a little slow. But don't feel that you're not going to be able to come back. Especially, I think the world has changed so much now. You can come back at different levels and you can change the field itself completely and still be able to do something. And right, so I would think first 5-10 years is for yourself, your growth. After that, one should start thinking of how to give back. That's it. One should have to start thinking of how they will be able to give back. Now, whether everybody starts happening their own firms, I'm not saying that, but there should be some way of giving back, and that should be the thought process. I think 10 years after you're in your working space. So that's what I would think.
Yeah, sounds easy, but I'm sure it is pretty tough.
I'm sure. Yeah.
To reconcile oneself. And coincidentally, another guest that I had as part of this series, she was also saying in her first job, she wanted to work on C, and then she was doing something else. She was very upset, and how her manager kind of told her language doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
What she realized it later.
Yes. Good. Yeah. I think it really doesn't matter. I mean, I think when we are in that space, that time we think, oh no, if I do Java, then I will get a better promotion, or I'll get a better project or a better account. Maybe, but I'll say just be a little patient. Many times pick up whatever is available, because that gives a lot of other skills that we learn, which will be useful somewhere. There's nothing will go waste. Whatever you learn, something will come up somewhere. And that is what I believe. Maybe, again, I'll say maybe I was lucky that things have worked. Good for me. I've really not had, might have been ups and downs, but nothing for me to regret about, right? I've always felt, okay, because of this, it has shaped out like this, and it's okay, and things have moved on. I never thought I would spend 7 years in Dhwani. I just couldn't imagine. Even today, I think 7 years, really, and soon is going to be a decade. So I managed to spend a decade in the sector, and I'm not even planned for it. And I'm enjoying every day of it. It's not like I'm struggling here, right? So I think one has to be very open to whichever opportunity comes. I think that, and keep learning. At any age, keep learning.
On that very positive and wonderful note, thanks a lot, Mia, for sharing your story. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Guru, for having me here. Thanks.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.